Nelson? Jafar?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much. Did you see Nelson? I can't see him yet.
But I don't see any of the speakers, so I'm sure you can see it.
Okay, then I think it's time. We're going to start on. Okay, here we go.
You had a video you wanted to show first.
Yes. Tihani, is video shared?
It is shared now, yes.
Okay.
The secret of Japan's most notable onsen city. Split, fall, and rise. A 2.6 million year process. Finally revealed. Beppu, the onsen journey.
Professor Jafari?
Yes. May I begin?
Yes, please.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody across the world. We don't have a terminology for people from different parts of the world. We are being in different time zones. I'm Jafari, Jafari, University of Wisconsin in the United States. Purpose is not to introduce myself because I'm not a subject of discussion. But those of you who are in academic community probably know my work or you have met me. If you are in the industry, operators, policymakers, probably don't know me. But perhaps after coronavirus, there would be an opportunity. As you know, webinars have become very popular for one reason, and that is the coronavirus or COVID-19. Practically every single day, there is a webinar, tourism webinar. But we decided that we need to focus on something that everybody else is somehow neglecting. If I may divide up tourism into formal sector and informal sector, most of the webinars are dealing with big corporations in tourism, big airlines, big hotel chains, big situations, big everything. What is forgotten is the informal sector of tourism, especially small communities throughout the world, which were depending on a few tourists, and they were surviving on a few tourists. And somehow right now they don't have any tourists and nobody is representing them. In most cases, even the government and policymakers are not thinking about them. So we decided that we need to do something different from all other webinars and deal with little communities, little guys, and come up with subjects that would benefit them. We have an excellent panel for you. They are the people who know the subject quite well. What is common among all of them is that they're either Japanese or they speak Japanese or both. I'm the only one who is neither Japanese nor can speak Japanese. But I can say that I know a few words in Japanese, onsen that rebuilds your body, and sake that enhances your spirit, and irony that warms you up, and yen that can buy anything you want anywhere in the world. But that's the limit of my Japanese, which is fine enough. But what is fine is that we have an excellent panel for you today. I don't want to take too much time for talking about the introduction, because the substance that is going to follow needs to have all the attention. So I would like to mention the program to you and introduce you the moderator of the panel. After these comments, I'm going to introduce Dr. Kazem Vafadari, who is the moderator of the panel, and he would have about a few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, to set the stage to talk about the theme of the panel. Then after that, he will introduce, not me, would introduce his first speaker, then his second speaker, and there would be, after that, there would be a panel discussion of the two speakers, himself and two additional persons that are going to join us. Then we are going to have a cultural intermission. As you know, in tourism, we deal with substance, and we also recognize that each nation has a culture of its own, and that should be brought into tourism discussion. That would be a very short intermission, cultural intermission. After that, we are going to have the interaction with the audience. You may send your questions in advance, and some of them will be selected and asked, or the chair, depending on the time, the moderator, depending on the time, would invite you to ask questions in person. And after that, we are going to have a wrap-up session, concluding session. And that at that time, I will join Dr. Vafadari, and maybe throughout the webinar, I will join in, but the purpose is to let the discussion go on without me. And what I will be asking every single speaker, and there are 5 of them, is to tell us what is a takeaway lesson from the discussion. Each one of them will give you a takeaway lesson. And I want to invite you, audience, at the end of this webinar, decide for yourself, what is that I got out of this webinar? And we are hoping that you got a few items that you would apply if you are in Japan or if you are anywhere else in the world. So let me introduce to you Dr. Kazem Vafadari. He is a professor of tourism in Asia Pacific University in Japan. Though he is not Japanese by birth, he is fluent in Japanese, and he teaches in Japanese, and this is very impressive for me. He invited me last year to Beppu, and I was there and enjoyed it before coronavirus. What an amazing place that depends on tourism, and it's the destination that people go to for the reality of Beppu, but after a day or two, they want to see something else. So they go to those small communities that offer culture, other things of Japanese. And those are the very communities which are ignored right now and are not receiving any attention. So he is familiar with the area. He took me to a number of places, and I was really impressed with the way he works with the local community, with the small operators, advising them in the local language. And that's the way it should be. The tourism should be everybody assumes that formal sector of tourism is the bulk of tourism. It's not. Actually, small and medium-sized operators, small communities are the mass of tourism. And unfortunately, all the policies, all the government strategies are to help the formal sector of tourism. So let me stop here. I don't want to say more because time is limited. We have only 90 minutes and we want to save every minute of it and use every minute of it. Dr. Kazem Fadari, this is your, you are the moderator. Please take over and move us forward. Thank you very much. Hello.
I was muted. Thank you, Jafar, and thank you everybody for devoting time for this webinar in your Sunday morning. I know it's not easy to wake up that early in the morning, but you are committed and it's very and highly appreciated. As you see in my background, the purpose of this webinar is to work with local community in Beppu city, the city that our university, Ritz-Carlton Asia Pacific University, is located. The community is helping the university, especially the tourism and hospitality cluster of APU, as one of our education collaborator and our, let's say, education laboratory. And we are going to join force and have a think tank, what we can do hands in hand with community and the industry to overcome the difficulties of the current situation of pandemic. For this purpose, we have two key persons from the community, Mr. Tony Park, who is a self-employed Chinese nationality Korean living in Beppu City with his family. He speaks several languages, include Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and English. He has been working with city office in tourism information center since the pandemic happens and helping with foreign residents in Beppu, especially our international students. And our second guest speaker today is Mr. Yasuo Nogami, who is running a Japanese traditional inn. In Japanese, we call it Nogami Ryokan or Nogami Honkan. And he is the idea man of a local initiative that I can say is an international initiative now. It was born in Beppu City, and that initiative is Ompaku. Ompaku is a local initiative that aims revitalization of local communities. Starting in Beppu City, it has now international recognition, even though it was internally developed. It's working in about more than 100 regions in Japan and abroad. And he's going to share with us the lessons learned from Ompaku initiative as one example that can be shared with other communities in Japan. And we are going to discuss together to see what are the applications of such an initiative. So we have a common problem, which is pandemic. It's not our problem only, it's the world problem, but we should come up with regional solutions. We have to think globally and act locally. And for that, we have lessons from Beppu City of Japan. So the whole industry and business in Beppu City, which mainly was based on tourism, is now closed. It's going to be open up, but it's under discussion. Local governments have their own initiative, national government as well. Japan was aiming development of inbound tourism recently that was totally stopped as many other countries in the world. So what will be the best solution and how we can share our experiences to come up with a general solution and implement it. Mr. Nogami is going to share with us his valuable experience with his colleague, Mr. Park, for this coming 15 minutes. I would like to ask Mr. Nogami and Mr. Park to have their joint presentation now. Mr. Nogami, please.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. So first, Park-san will explain. And can I share the documents?
Sure.
Thank you very much, Professor Kazam. Introduced me to all the professors and other people. Right. And impact of corona crisis on Beppu tourism industry. I'm working in the information center. I just want to compare the before and after the before and now the corona, what impact. Before there was a lot of tourists from all around the world. The information center mainly service to the individual guests as a FIT, and around about 60,000 a year. It's not including the group tourists. That would be the others. That is before, but now it's the tourism is just dramatically down, and it's a sort of so sad about that. Around about 10 more or less people come to the information center to this is for the local domestic. It's really hard to see the foreign tourists come from the other countries, and yeah. Right. All right. Yeah. So go to travel campaign is government is going to start announced on 22nd. The local people in the small community, they're worried about they want people come because for the economics, but they also worry about they also bring over the coronaviruses. So it's really complicated to how the community to face to this situation. Yeah. And the community facilities, because of the corona, the many of them, they just closed down or temporarily stopped their operation. So it's really no good for the economics for the local communities. And also they thinking how we can recover from the corona. There's a lot of ideas, such as in the information center, we are building the network, not only Beppu, and the other cities as well, like Usa, the nearby Usaki, and some of the other cities. We're doing the network, and then when the people come, they want to visit Oida prefecture or Beppu city or other cities, so we can do the a better service for them. 次に行きましょう。
ね、もう終わりね。
もう終わりですね。
OK じゃあ、はい。
Yeah, and yeah, so now we are facing those many problems, but the local communities, they're struggling, or they are together, working together to think about any good ideas to develop more how to over this corona crisis. All right, this is my first time, so it's a little bit nervous. So yeah, this is my presentation is all about. Thank you very much.
はい、next to Pak san, I will presentation. My name is Nogami, as Mr. Kazem introduced. I'm not so good at English, so please forgive me. はい。We will report from the ONPAC network. Our organization, ONPAC, is an effort to discover and utilize local resources and develop local human resources, started from 2001 in Beppu. So local ONPAC NGO plays a central role in supporting the activities of microtourism in the region. So this time, this is not for the explanation for our ONPAC details. So we prepared more information about ONPAC in webinar site. Please see the link. So now, ONPAC activities are widespread in many areas of Japan. So we are calling the ONPAC network now. So as Tony-san explains, we have the current problem of tourism in small communities. The functions of the core tourist destinations, such as Beppu, has stopped completely. So it means so there are many small communities around the Beppu area. So there are no guests, no visitors from Beppu. And government support explained by Go to Japan travel campaign were prioritized the revitalization of the large tourism industries. It means they are not supporting the small communities tourism at now. And also there are many negative opinions among the community residents. So it means regarding the interaction with urban areas, because there are many infections happens in Tokyo. So this is our basic way of thinking to corona crisis for revitalization on small community tourism. So number one, they think that the government support will take time. It maybe 1 or 2 years. We must wait, I think. So it means at the community level, we shall start. What they can do, the community people can do, agreed. We shall start from the small things. So, and I think there are many social changes after Corona. So we should consider about these situations. So I was uploaded in detailed presentation for how social changes were researched by JTB, the Japanese most big travel agents company, researched. So please see the details. So we will introduce shortly our network what they are doing now. The Gifu area on-pack NGO. So Gifu is a central part of Japan, has already played a central role in developing tourism resources around the Nagaragawa River. So they have no guests, there are no visitors to their regions. So they are now concentrating for regenerating traditional craft. As you can see these beautiful photos, they have the original Japanese umbrella traditional crafts culture. So they are now focusing for this one. And of course, they are carrying out using the internet to promote and sales carrying out by internet. So this is another case. So we also have the on-pack NGO in Atami area. So Atami area is very near from Tokyo. So they are now start developing a remote work style that making using real estate in Atami area, because they are taking advantage of the location characteristics of the very near from Tokyo. And this is another one. Noto area on-pack NGO develops an experience-based tour for the wealthy people who live in the surrounding area, very near from area, because community people do not want to come many people from Tokyo or Osaka, very big cities, because
Worry.
so they are worrying about the infection expanding. So they have the connection with the regional network built by on-pack hotels or bus operators. They are connected, and they already made an experience-based tour, very small one. And last one is Beppu on-pack NGO. It means us. And we are now preparing for developing the VFR, so visiting friends and relatives market, because the community residents thinking it's safer than they will invite the friends or relatives. The first target to work with are the domestic farm communities. So we have farms so far. And next is international students. So we have the APU in this city, so who have been involved with Beppu. Yes, this is our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nogami, for your very punctual presentation. Actually, we did several times talking how to set up this large presentation in a time-efficient way that we can get the best of our time and discussion time. So we are going to have a panel discussion from now. I would like to ask our panelists, Mr. Professor Nelson and Professor Yoon, to join us in the panel discussion, and also Jafar himself, and discuss about the case of Beppu in particular, and the Japan as the country case with regard of the local initiatives of Beppu. So as you see, we have a general problem. We have the pandemic, and we have Beppu community that, as you could say, it's very important for tourism industry in Kyushu. But it's not only Beppu city that is suffering from this closure of the industry. It's all local communities around Beppu that they have some share of Beppu travel, because we have small villages around. We have local initiatives that one of them is one village, one program, one village, one product movement. And the other one is a destination branding for agriculture, which is agricultural heritage system that designate 6 cities and municipalities in Oita Prefecture. And all of them are suffering from the lack of tourism in Beppu, because Beppu has been feeding the regional and very local tourism industry in Beppu. So I would like to ask everybody to join us in this discussion. I would like to introduce our Professor Yoon. He is faculty of APU Ritz-Macon Asia Pacific University in tourism and hospitality, and his specialty is tourism and hospitality management. And he has been working with several communities in Beppu and in Oita, including Beppu City and Hiji town during his work in APU. We have Professor Nelson, that he's an anthropologist from the California University, and Nelson has a long history of working with Japanese community. He is fluent in Japanese, and he knows Japan much more than me. Both of us are non-Japanese, and Nelson is, if I say it in Japanese, is my senpai. So we are going to have a panel discussion, and I would like to ask everybody's idea about what do you think about the efficiency of the Japanese current public policy or government, local and national government policy in general and in regards with local communities and community development. Let's start with Professor Nelson, please. Nelson?
Professor Kazem?
Yes?
I think Professor Nelson is having troubles with...
Oh, so in internet maybe. Okay, then we go to the other panelist. Jafar, do you want to comment before we go with the other panelists? You are muted, Jafar. Please unmute yourself. Please click the mic. Yes, now it's
Yes,
okay.
I did that intentionally. Thank you. My question would not be very informed because of my lack of knowledge about Japan and Japanese culture. Nelson's comments would be very informed. But what I'm really concerned, and I expressed it at the beginning, at the introduction, is in most countries, I don't know about Japan, in most countries, governments, when they want to assist tourism, they always assist the formal sector, the big companies, etc. And my question from the panel, who are the knowledgeable individual, is how informed is Japanese policy for revitalization of tourism now, and especially after coronavirus? They are the people, basically people in the informal sector of tourism are the people who have no access to resources. They do not know how to use the resources. They do not know how to get help. They have no advice, and they are left on their own. Yet they have, if you measure it on the size of economic contribution that they make tremendous contribution to the total tourism expenditure and supply demand of any nation. And that's really the intent of our webinars and seminars, to bring the pains of the informal sector, micro operators in tourism, small communities with no tourism associations, background support, etc. So I want to state that with the hope that our colleague from Japan, who are familiar with tourism policy of Japan and know what is going on now, would comment on it, and hopefully we would find some strategies, some recommendations for the local communities depending on tourism, for micro entrepreneurs. Should they be should they learn to be on their own and find out a way on their own, or can there be a way that the formal sector can assist them and the government policies would support them?
Thank you, Jafar. I think Nelson has got some PC problem, and meanwhile, I would like to ask our Yoon Sensei. Professor Yoon, can you elaborate your idea about the efficiency of Japanese government policy toward the situation at the moment?
Yes, and thank you very much. Well, actually, I'm Yun from APU, Bismarck APU University, Japan. Nice to meet you guys. Today's presentation from Mr. Park and Nogami, they also mentioned that the Go to Travel campaign is kind of institutional campaign by Japanese central government. Actually, it's really highly controversial issues these days. If you watch, I don't know, many people can read a Japanese newspaper, but it's highly controversial issues because, actually the Go to Travel campaign was designed to promote destination travels to help boost local business. So they set up a lot of budget, and they provide subsidies about 50% of their cost for transportations, hotel, and restaurant, and tourist attractions and shopping mall. But the problem is that a lot of local governments, they have already taken their own action to attract tourists from their own locals and neighbor prefectures. So with their special Corona subsidies and other fund. So as far as I know, about 40 prefectural government have introduced their own programs to subsidize travel expenses. So including Oita Prefecture, we have Oniwari, right? Oniwari. So personally, I think it would be better if the central government, Japanese government, transfer the budget assigned to the Go to Travel campaign to local government to support their effort to their local business and small, enterprises. So yeah, that's one of the issues. And another issue is probably infections issues. So, I won't mention the infection issues like this time.
Thank you, Professor Yoon. And before I ask our presenters to elaborate more about the information and their solutions and perspective from the local community point of view, I would like to mention some of the points that was raised in the presentation. So as we can see, local communities now are not seen as much as the formal side of industry is considered in the current policy. I remember when the Oniwari fund or subsidy was offered, it was taken maybe in about half a day or in one day. And it's not a kind of general or sufficient support that we can rely on for the industry to revitalize based on this. They are kind of incentives, but what we can do as a sustainable way of managing the destination based on the community priorities. We have to involve the community and try to find a bottom-up approach toward sustainable revitalization. Or if the answer or the possible solution is coming, it should be based on the community capacity. So if the capacity exists, we have to use it, and the existing capacity should be utilized for capacity building among Japanese societies and Japanese local communities. That's why we are trying to see what is the capacity of Onpaku as a local initiative that has been, let's say, implemented in 100 regions throughout Japan and outside Japan, and how this network or the existing network can be used as a platform for raising awareness, for reuniting people at the face or in the face of pandemic, and to bring the community in front again, because this is the community that should decide to accept or not. If even the industry decides without the support of community, the tourists are not welcome into their region. If they're worried, if they are not able to give a service back to the tourists in terms of their hospitality, the destination is not the original destination as is lost. So I want to ask Mr. Nogami, what do you think about Onpaku and what the potentials has Onpaku to create capacity for resistance? If the communities like Beppu are too much depending on tourism and they're suffering more, and there are some other communities that they haven't been much depending on tourism, how they can benefit from each other at this time? Is there any way that some source of tourism can remain? Is there any way that some part of the tourism benefits, like the repeater market, can still communicate with the destination if they have been shopping or buying souvenirs, for example? Is it any way that you think in short term can be a solution until we see a more clear future? Mr. Nogami, please.
Yes, yes. The Japanese government is now supporting for big tourism businesses such as the airport company or travel agencies. So they do the campaign for the whole Japan area, not the community, not the local area. So I can understand, because we also it is important for supporting the big tourism company also. But our our role is to revitalize the local communities. So, but our Onpaku activity is already did for more than 10 years for each rural communities. So we also have the networks inside the communities, and there are many partners in the communities. And so we already made the we already increase the community capacity in our local area. So but from now, so there are not so enough support from the Japanese government or local government to the Onpaku communities, because it is very small activities in small areas. but I think this Corona crisis will be change the change the society. So I know that many young people in Japan want to go outside from the urban area, and they do something so more natural or more sustainable project in the local communities. So I think it is very important to grow up such young people or new activities in communities. So we think it is a chance for Onpaku networks now. It's okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Park, you have been working with the Tourist Information Center.
Yes.
So what changes you see in Beppu as a touristic destination, and what is the immediate need at the moment?
All right. We also get support from the central government and the local government. But to be honest, the support is not enough. And we have to think by ourselves how to get the people to come and how to survive. And the one interesting thing, yesterday I was working in the information center. On the beside, there are some souvenir shops, and they dropped down the selling price to half. And not only the tourists, and even some local people, they when they see the price, they just buy it. And also in Japan, it was not very popular for the delivery. Right? When they order food, probably they they want to eat. They just go to the restaurant to eat before. But now the delivery services are really getting popular, and you don't have to pay extra monies for some company. And yeah, this is a lot of good changes because of this Corona. So it's a step by step, it's growing up, I think, and getting recovery. Yes, back to you, Mr. Cousin.
Thank you very much. So you are talking about recovery, but I still know that the major facilities like hotels, accommodations, restaurants, they're closed. So how long they have been so far is clear, but we don't know how long from now on they will continue closing up. And if this happens, we are going to lose many jobs and the associated livelihoods. Is not only just the face. I've been talking to many farmers, for example. They are not willing to have new farms or plantation because they think that they cannot sell it. It's a cycle, you know. Tourism was the face of business in Beppu, and it has a long background. It's a chain. I've been talking to some people who are raising chicken, for example, and for the food and feeding animal, they need the rice husk. You call it nuka. So if you were searching for rice skin last year, it was so much that they put it in the soil as a fertilizer. But this year, because the hotels, they don't buy rice, you don't have rice skin too. So it's now is not available. So, you know, everything goes down. It's just interconnected, interlinked economy. And we need to make somehow the consumption goes back. And if this consumption, if this economy doesn't revitalize, in many ways we will suffer. It's not only tourism industry. That's why the role of community is very important. It's not only the big industry or big companies in the industry. So as Mr. Nogami mentioned, I want to reword some of his suggestions. You mentioned about let's communicate with each other. So we have to increase communications, or we should have more understanding of regional characteristics. So I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by understand regional characteristics? What we can learn from each other? Or I like the idea of we have to respect the small challenges. Yes, this is especially very true, that if there are small challenges, we have to value it and we have to let them grow, because some of these small challenges might be the right solution for some regions and characteristics. And then the information. So we should share the information among each other. So Mr. Nogami, do you think Onpaku has the capacity to bring this information and share it while Corona has stopped these communications? Or I can say how Corona affected Onpaku itself.
Yes. I don't know exactly, because from now on it is a panic situation in each communities. So we didn't evaluate each communities from now on due to the Corona crisis affection.
I see. So,
Yes. From now on, we are now just starting activities for each communities, and we will gather the information and share each other. So the important thing, what I say, is to build community capacity for the regular time is important. So
thank you.
there are no quick medicines for community revitalization, I think.
Great. I see Nelson has raised hand. Nelson, could you fix your PC problem?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great.
You're all right.
It's a relief. Welcome.
The sound came on about 4 minutes ago. I don't know why, but so I didn't hear everything in the beginning. From what little I know about Onpaku, it seems like a very good framework for use. It's got a lot of experience and a lot of contacts. And in a situation like this, it's very difficult to start something completely new. I think it looks like Onpaku could be adapted to the present situation. Maybe the same program could be tried on different places if the opportunities occur. So I don't know much about it, but I'm rather optimistic, rather than starting afresh or just plunging into a place where you don't know or haven't tried things. So that's my reaction to what I've heard about this so far. But of course, I don't know the details.
I see. Nelson, you have been in Japan for a long time and you know the local communities. So in your idea, what's the differences or what are the differences of Japanese local communities, and what do you see as potentials for Japan to overcome the pandemic in compare with other societies?
Well, Japan has two pandemics to overcome. One of them is the inability to make more babies, and the other one is the disease that has come in from outside. So there are two problems hitting each other all the time. And that is particularly a problem, as you know, for rural areas, left behind old people, even seen beautiful thatched roofed houses falling down because the children don't want them, rather not look after them. So I have seen this for 20 or 30 years in parts of rural Japan. My own experience is most concentratedly in a place called Kamocho, Aida-gun. It's Kagoshima Inaka, because that's where my wife's family is, and I have been staying there on and off since 1974. And tourism was not a big feature of that small farming town like many, many others in Japan, tourism has been introduced. We were talking about this yesterday. Tourism can be a replacement in some ways for the lack of able-bodied people to do farming, et cetera, et cetera. It's something which other people can get into. It can be part-time and so on. Let me just give you the example of Kamo. Not that other villages have the same advantages. Kamo is a small town whose population has gone way down. It has a Hachiman Jinja, which is nice, lots of Hachiman Jinja, but it has a Daikusu. It has a huge camphor tree, which is 1,560 years old, and people were very proud of it. But when the economy went down because agriculture was not practiced a lot by a lot of the older people, younger people going away, they decided to introduce tourism as a way where older people could work, housewives could work, etc. So they have made the Daikusu famous. This, I believe, is prefectural, not a national thing. They get bus tours coming there. They built a little local museum. It's interesting because they built a little local museum, which is staffed by a few local people, mainly housewives. They don't have to be there all the time, but they have to be hospitable, give you a little kamo cha. It has lots of old photographs. It seems to have invented a lot of traditions I didn't know about before. The house that the family lived on was down a very small street called Nishibaba. But they changed the name of that to the street of samurai houses. So that just the change of the label makes people, if they come to Hachiman Jinja and go to this little tourist bureau, they explore when they see something like that. So it is not saying a great success, but tourism has been introduced to a place that is losing population and seems to have provided not only a few jobs, but it's also provided a pride of those people. I know some people who never lived there, but when their mother got very old, they decided to move back there. It was a place that had a name, had an identity. And these are retired people in their 60s with a bit of money and so on. Those are the kinds of people who can volunteer, who can help the council, who can come up with suggestions because they are urban people who've returned to villages like this. And this brings in another matter we talked about yesterday, and that is the two-way exchange between rural areas and cities, even big cities, Osaka and Tokyo. People are going back. Some people are going back, not just retirees like I talked about. Oh, somebody put, oh, sorry, I got a message in Chinese on my thing. There are people who go back there because they're connected, because it's cheaper, because they got a free house. A lot of people don't. And then there are other people who are looking in McCannell's way, they are alienated from urban society and its constrictions and so on. And they may be young people. And again, you could move into a rural area where you may or may not have connections, or it may be famous for some little thing, like people going back to Onta because they've heard of the pottery. And these are people, again, who bring in ideas, bring in possibly they're fairly well off compared with local people. So I'm saying that this is another avenue to make use of things that are already happening. This is not outsiders imposing on local people. This is maybe the outsiders can negotiate with and give ideas and share ideas with some of these returned people, some of these urban rural people. And one of the reasons I bring this up is, if I may go on for a little bit, is that I've been doing a lot of research on rural tourism in China, which is enormous, but it's also very, very troubled and results in alienation of the rural people versus the tourists. It results in companies exploiting the local people, collusion between government and companies to grab land, et cetera, et cetera. And the people in China are asking me as an anthropologist, what is going wrong here? Why can't we have successful, welcomed rural tourism without somebody outsider hitting us over the head? So I thought back to where did I come from? I grew up in a rural village in England called Shamley Green. And it's one of many, many villages which has rural tourism. It is not dominated by big companies. It's not facilitated through building huge hotels. It's something which is kind of networked into the English character. People like to walk in the countryside. England has rules that if there are footpaths through fields, the farmer cannot keep people out. Even if there's a dangerous bull, they have to restrain the bull. You can't stop people enjoying the countryside. They have pubs. Many of them have put in restaurants. Some of them have become ryokan-like. They put in bed and breakfast and make it very comfortable. So I think England, after the Industrial Revolution, which threatened, many people thought threatened the countryside, now has a much more balanced relation of the countryside to the city. And tourism is a very important, stable, and admired part of the countryside now. It's not threatening, and it works through an alliance of the middle-class people who may have spent some of their life somewhere else, but like the countryside, have come back to live there. Other people never left, but they commute to work in a cosmopolitan or city region, but live at home. And the local people who've never left, who were farmers, who were workers and so on, there is a kind of a negotiated agreement that we want to keep this place nice. We don't want to spoil it, but we do like a little business. If lots of people come in their cars and come to the pub, all right, the pub will employ a few local people. Maybe it employs somebody to clean up afterwards. If we have the bed and breakfast in a small house or something, okay, that might employ somebody else. Maybe part-time, convenient for a farmer's wife or something like that. So I'm going far from Anta and Beppu, but I'm trying to see connections, we might almost call them postmodern connections, that are usable, that can be exploited in the modern world, that is not like it was 40 years ago or 50 years ago. So I think that the Onpaku program is situated to make use of that sort of thing. They can make the connections. They are people who know what's happening in the modern world. They don't have a fixed view of the relation of the countryside and the city and tourism and so on. They can see opportunities. The whole Satoyama movement in Japan is another new opportunity based on modern or postmodern cultural characteristics, like urban people wanting to love and preserve rural areas, etc. Not that they come from there, but they identify with these as part of Japan, something that they admire. They will pitch a hand and help in them and so on. I'm thinking particularly the work of Dashita Megumi, who you may know. So I think I'm very optimistic if we can use these maybe non-commercial connections to arrive at novelties, discoveries, maybe making a little new matsuri on the basis of something that happened or something that's happening. And the last thing I want to say, which I've been involved in a lot, is content tourism. I don't know whether you use the word or not. It's I've been working with Yamamoto Sensei, Yamamoto Takayoshi in Hokudai, and they're working on how the media, social media, popular culture, etc., is making new opportunities that local people maybe don't see. That is joining the mediated culture, popular culture of the modern world with little villages. For instance, some of the villages even in Kumamoto Prefecture before the floods are doing very well because they're mentioned in somebody's book, or somebody made there was a media program about them or something like that. So we use these cultural things as hooks to build with experience like Onpaku, to build on these. And we can't do it everywhere, but there is so much of it in Japan. So
Thank you, Nelson. Yes, if I summarize your comments and see the common parts with Mr. Nogami and Park, you also believe that the pandemic is an opportunity to bring people back to their furusato, and they want to live in the area. So it's introducing new.
One urban people. I don't know about that. I haven't been there. I've only been in Japan in towns and cities recently.
Yes, and the second or the similar idea from Nogami-san was that at least it can slow down the out migration, and it can maybe encourage young people to stay in their locality. They are not interested in traveling or going outside as much, or for business at least, as they were before pandemic. And so this is an opportunity. And then the second idea of yours that is very interesting is the content tourism. I know several of our distinguished professors are in the audience. So we are going back to the audience session later, and I'm going to ask their idea about the possibility of content tourism for rural development and community building in the face of pandemic later. So I want to go back. Yes.
For instance, let me give one example. You remember the series called Tobugago Toku?
Yes.
Television series? That brought a lot of interest for Kagoshima to build on.
Yes, exactly.
So there was a historical one, but that's a kind of thing.
Yeah, and the possibility so exists because of the nature of this type of tourism development. It's not very unrealistic when we have or to coexist with pandemic. I would like to go back to our Professor Yoon and see if he wants to elaborate.
Well, Professor Nelson mentioned very interesting things about content tourism, because content tourism is one of the new tourism area in Japan, and a lot of local community try to invite producer to come to their country, their area, to create kind of TV drama, as Professor Nelson mentioned. So one of the example is the history drama, and also animation in Japan. So it's gonna be a good idea to do some work for to recreate community tourism using content tourism. It's really, really good idea and fascinating.
Thank you very much. We have maybe 1 minute, Jafar, if you want to add something before we go to a short break and we watch another video from Beppu before we go to the audience section.
We are short of time, so I make it very quick. I really wonder what can Japanese small communities do in order to come back to tourism, those who are dependent on tourism. How they got to tourism, that's a different story. Did they get to tourism because they lost agriculture, etc.? The reality is they got into tourism and they have become dependent or semi-dependent on tourism. The other fact that we know, which I don't know if this is the case of Japan or not, the formal sector and the government does not think of them. So what I would like to hear from my Japanese speakers, what should the local communities do? Do you advise them to become self-sufficient, depending on themselves, or should they wait for a blessing from above?
Mr. Nogami, you want to answer, or Park-san? Jafar, can you repeat your question maybe once more?
Yes, it doesn't matter how small communities got to tourism. The fact is that they are in tourism, and a major source of their income was tourism until the coronavirus. Right now, they have no help. And the help does not appear to be coming from the government, because the government is thinking of the large companies and large institutions. Should they become self-sufficient, finding their own solutions, or should they wait for something to happen for them?
Okay. Right. The first, I want to mention, actually, the central government is not only supporting the big companies, also they are caring about the small and middle-sized companies as well. There's a 1 million and 2 million program, the project they have. It's already been delivered, the money already been delivered to the small companies. And also the local government, such as Beppu, the local government also made their own policies for local small and middle-sized companies as well. And the community also themselves working together and then building a network as well, as not through the whole prefecture or whole city, but just for the local, the small community. As I know, in Kanava area in Beppu, they this is the main tourism destination in Beppu, and the Jigoku Meguri, many restaurants and many the hotels are located in there, and they working together. They help each other, and they sharing the informations, and also they ask for help to the local governments. And also there's one organization called Commercial and Industry Organization. Every city has, I think many people know that. And they also doing the support to the communities. And also there's another organization called the Welfare Japan Welfare Organization is also located in every city, and they also doing the lending money to the companies or to the individual person who need it. So, as I think the support is a lot, but it's not enough. That is true, not enough. So from the community or from the individuals, they have to effort to get to recover from this corona. That is the main thing, I think. Yeah.
And up to now and before corona, the community already has problems. So there are no young people, and there are no income from the not so enough income from the tourism already. So after corona, maybe it not so change so big, because they have the income from the agriculture or the another one. So so focus to the tourism income. Yeah, I don't have any good idea for so revitalize for just only the tourism incomes. So it means we shall revitalize for the, not only the tourism, for the many kind of industry, small industry is needed to the community. So we did the on-pack approach. The on-pack approach is not just revitalizing so tourism industries. They are revitalizing the communities. So focus to the human resources is very important. So even the older people, older residents in community should do something. Small challenges is very important. So many people challenge for the small things is very important for the community, I think. So the on-pack is such a model. So but recently there are many inbound travelers to Japan. So the Japanese government is focused on to the inbound market only. They are not so care about the community tourism. So now the Corona crisis, same. But we hope to change the policies for the Japanese government, but we should explain so deeply to the Japanese government. But that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nagami. Thank you, Jafar. In a few seconds, if I want to summarize or abstract what I hear is, let's let local communities to initiate bottom-up challenges. Focus on domestic, don't sacrifice domestic for inbound. Japan has a very well established, organized domestic tourism economy, and even for more short-term policy, maybe go local, because I hear from Mr. Nogami that, for instance, the Beppu tourism market are 80% or something like 80% of them are only from Kyushu. So if we focus on Kyushu, if we can go local, then it has a short-term possibility for revitalization and appreciate the small challenges from the community. So we are going to listen back to you again after watching a video. During the video, feel free to bring your coffee and drinks. And this is the latest video that produced by City Office and introduced by Mr. Nogami. I saw it yesterday and it's amazing. So let's watch the video. It has culture and it has everything about Beppu. It gives a realistic image of what a destination Beppu it is. And in exactly 7 minutes, we go back for another 15 minutes question answer from the audience. And please accompany us until that time. So let me share my screen with the video. And here we go. Just a moment.
Beppu. This is my hometown. Our nature is beautiful, but that is true of everywhere in the world. But we have one resource that makes us unique. Today I will tell you about that resource and share Beppu's story. 2.6 million years ago, the island, which is now Kyushu in southern Japan, split, giving rise to a corridor of volcanoes. Spread below the spectacular Tsurumi Range is the city of Beppu, lying in a fan-shaped arc along the shores of Beppu Bay. Comprised of just 125 square kilometers, Beppu contains nearly 2,300 hot springs. In Beppu, hot springs are everywhere, even in the backyards of ordinary citizens. We have the luxury of bathing in natural hot spring water every day. Where did this all start? The origin of hot springs goes all the way back to the birth of the Earth 4.6 billion years ago. Elements that eventually formed water on our planet were brought in by meteorites. These meteorites traveled at a speed of 20 kilometers per second, and the energy that was released during their collision with the Earth melted them and added to the heat of our planet. The Earth's surface has cooled since then, but heat remains inside and is further maintained by radioactive decay underneath the crust. Heat escapes by conduction and fluid flow through cracks in the crust, and hot springs are a natural gift born of this geothermal activity. The island of Kyushu is still geologically active today. It expands about 1 centimeter per year. This causes fractures or faults in the land, and these faults are the crucial pathway to hot springs. Beppu has 2 fault lines running along its edges, and the 8 hot spring zones in Beppu are found along these fault lines. The exposed faults are 15 to 20 meters tall in the Harita hot spring zone, and they are visible alongside the cold waterfalls you see when enjoying a hot spring bath here. The faults are one of the reasons that Beppu is the largest producer of hot spring water in Japan, with a gross volume of 80,000 liters gushing out per minute. Beppu also holds the record for the highest average spring temperature. Many of the springs reach as high as 90 to 100 degrees Celsius. The variety of eye-pleasing textures and colors of the springs also adds to the excitement when one explores the city. So how does this happen? Scientists discovered that the Philippine sea plate subducts under the Eurasian plate, sucking seawater and sediments down and putting them under extreme pressure. About 100 kilometers beneath Kyushu, water escapes from the descending crust and creates the conditions for hot mantle rocks to melt into magma, which then rises. This magma heats up a reserve of natural water that lies beneath the Surumi mountain range. This reservoir is constantly replenished by rain and is the lifeblood of Beppu's hot springs. Every raindrop that makes its way into the reservoir undergoes a 50-year journey before it gushes out into a hot spring. Along this journey, it comes into contact with volcanic gases rich in minerals and absorbs these minerals to form a variety of spring types. When soaking in your favorite hot spring baths, imagine the water when it first fell as rain and enjoy its 50 years of perfection. In the late 19th century, local people began to use the Kazusabori digging technique to reveal additional hot springs. Once considered a health therapy solely for the elite, hot spring bathing now became a luxury, available to commoners as well. Beppu began to welcome an increasing number of visitors. The construction of a ferry port in 1871 opened Beppu to a new flow of visitors from Osaka, and also marks the point when Beppu evolved into a popular tourist destination. Today, guests continue to flock to Beppu from far and wide, to experience the age-old tradition of communal bathing. The use of hot springs in Beppu has also grown beyond just bathing. Today, hot spring water is used for everything, from beauty products made from harvested hot spring minerals to heated botanical gardens, geothermal power generation, and even premium dining. If your journey should lead you to Beppu, you will encounter a wide array of delights to indulge your senses. You will have thousands of hot spring facilities, all offering unique bathing experiences to choose among, as well as many other related adventures beckoning you. Beppu's hot spring culture is unique and vibrant. And your challenge is to experience it all.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome back. The floor is open now for the audience for any question or comment that you might have, please. Yes, Professor Cooper.
I hope you can hear me. I wanted to make a comment a little earlier. One of the things that you must do when you're analyzing what a destination could do in the future is to understand where it's coming from. The point was made by Professor Vapadari just before the video. Beppu, we're going to use that destination, is a domestic tourist destination. Most of its tourists come from the local area, and what's more, they're day trippers. So it seems to me that to recreate that particular market, you need to make sure that the journey that people were used to make is safe again. So really the problem for us as a destination for day trippers going to bathe in the hot water is simply to say that the virus isn't going to get you. That's a different point from what Professor Jafar was saying, and it was picked up by Mr. Park and Mr. Navlumi, and that is that Beppu's tourism needed to change anyway. It needed to become something more than just a day tripper venue for activity to grow here. So I think there's two things. One, let's solve the virus crisis, and that'll bring back the 8 million tourists that would normally come for a bath, and then work out how we're going to create 21st century tourism based upon the hot spring.
Thank you, Professor Cooper. Anybody else? I do also believe that the safety measures of destination is important. How to encourage people to mobilize them again or to travel. It needs first to make sure that it's safe. So they don't want to go far, go domestic, and safety of travel is very important. I can see some of our very experienced professors in the list. May I ask Professor Todoroki if he has some comments? Todoroki Sensei, are you there? Yotsumoto Sensei.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So, I have a comment about Onpaku. think that one of the problems is revitalization of local communities. And I think so that problem comes from decreasing population, and it has associated problems like destruction of the landscape, local space, like abandoned the farms or like abandoned houses, and also decreasing community functions. So we don't have enough people for voluntary work in local areas, and also decreasing local people's pride on their own communities. So Onpaku, Onpaku is not just tourism development. It also has functions of community development. It has like product development component and also networking within the communities. So Onpaku can work to alleviate decreasing community functions and also decreasing local people's pride. They can alleviate decreasing local people's pride on their own communities. And if they use like abandoned houses, like in Beppu for Onpaku, it is also helping to alleviate destruction of the landscape. And about decreasing population, Onpaku is very small scale, so it's really difficult to do. So basically, the government to work against the decreasing population, maybe Japanese government to think about immigration to bring more immigrants to Japan. So that's my comment on Onpaku. And another comment is about a GoTo campaign, Japan's GoTo campaign. So Japanese government wants to spend 1.7 trillion yen, and they want to start it next week. But Japan now faces a sign of the second wave of coronavirus spread. So in today's newspaper, about 70% of Japanese wants to postpone this GoTo campaign, and only about 20% think it's appropriate. And this campaign mainly for the large companies, not the community level. So some community level tourism related companies are also against this campaign. But actually, this campaign is really political. So, 200 to 300 billion yen will be spent for the processing of this campaign. So that money goes to big company, and also mainly these campaigns for large companies. But at the local level, many prefectures try to do campaigns for the tourists only within their prefecture. But this campaign is nationwide, except Tokyo, and that exception of Tokyo is also political too. So I think local communities really cannot rely on the national government, because the policies for this corona virus at the national level is really inconsistent and haphazard, only consistency government has is that that is for big companies. That's a consistency. So local government really, local government communities really need to think about their own way, not really depend on the national government totally. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yatsumoto. I want Mr. Nogami to tell us what he thinks about Yatsumoto Sensei's comment. Is go-to campaign too early, or do you think it will be failed if they run it right now because of this 70% of people that they don't support it?
Okay, so in fact, so I'm not have the strong interesting about the Japanese government's policy because they will change often and not unstable, not stable. So we did the unpack activities from now on.
So you
I think-
believe more in community level
Yes.
than public? Yeah.
I think the population is not a big issue for our activities. So we are trying to increase the small challenges in community levels. So small variety challenges. If there are many individuals challenges, many do many challenges in the community level, the community will be changed so positively. So we know already, so through our experience. So the unpack method is emphasized to increasing the small challenges in communities. The challenges is very variety, so anything is okay. But the some people, even he's old people, so get experience for success. Small success is enough. He will change. So we have the experience. So we did unpack, but there is not so many support from government. So we should buy our own. This is our conclusion. My conclusion from now. Yes.
Mr. Jahangir Alam pointed, he has a question in the chat. Are you there, sir?
Thank you. This is Alama Muhammad Jahangir. I am from Yamaguchi University, Graduate School of Economics. So last year I have visited Beppu city. So we know the many countries in the world are now entering a new phase in fighting the coronavirus crisis, while at the same time they are managing the reopening of the tourism economy. But it is very difficult and challenging. So from this perspective, what policy should take to overcome these challenges to attract international tourists in Beppu area?
If you don't have them, you never have.
Thank you. Is your comment end? Mr.
Yes.
Jahangir? Okay, thank you so much. I'm receiving some comments on chat that people are saying also that go-to campaign is too early. Go local.
Yeah.
Stay with community, and these is a common comment at the moment as I see. I see Professor Cooper has also one more comment.
Yeah.
A short comment, please, Cooper
Yeah.
Sensei.
It's a bit of ad hoc research. I went out last night, and the places I went to, there wouldn't have been more than about 2% of people wearing face masks inside the restaurants. Out on the street, they were wearing them inside the restaurants, including the serving staff. Now, I would have thought that's something that local government and people like Ompaku should be monitoring, because that's not going to solve the virus problem in the future. They were all young people, And I felt actually uncomfortable being there because I was the only one with a mask on. I would like some comment on that sort of community attitude towards what we're doing.
Great. So you are also emphasizing on the role of the community and community rights to have tourism or not. So is tourism an inconvenient place in the face of pandemic or not? Should be considered more when you have the policy in the place. Okay. Any more comment or question from the audience? I think we are running out of time. We can have one more question from the audience if we have. Okay, I don't see any more question. I would like to ask our Professor Jafar for some wrapping up and final comments before I do my conclusion. Professor Jafar?
Yes, thank you. I benefited from the discussion we had from experts, Japanese or not. The reality is that there was tourism in the past. There is no tourism today. Will there be tourism tomorrow? And many people hope that yes, and it's going to be soon. I remember in the past there were 3 or more S's in tourism: sun, sand, sea, and another one I would not mention. Today, I believe for tourism to come back, a number of factors should be emphasized at small level communities or large communities, doesn't matter, large destinations. They happen to be also beginning with S: safety, security, and satisfaction. Are small communities or large tourism destinations giving safety and security blanket or the impression of it to their customers?
Yeah.
And despite all the worries they go through to go to the destination for a day or 2 of vacation, do they get any satisfaction out of that? Who is dealing with that? I don't think, is the government teaching the tourism operators about safety and security, or are they supposed to find this out on their own? And I think if we leave it to the community, to the tourism operators, they have other issues to deal with. They may not come to that. From a distance, I'm familiar with Japan's new policy promoting domestic tourism, but Japan is not alone. Just about every country is saying that this is the solution. The funny thing is that domestic tourism has been always here. The part that the tourism, even scholars or operators don't realize, domestic tourism is larger than international tourism. International tourism is maybe 10% or less than 10% of the total volume of tourism. It has been always domestic tourism, but domestic tourism has also dried up during coronavirus. And I think we should redefine domestic tourism and not to be bound by the definitions of UNWTO or other institutions that 100 kilometers, 24 hours. I think in the times of coronavirus, if people to choose to go only 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers, or even have the weekend in their own city, in a resort, in a hotel, that is helping for tourism to come back. These are some of the simple things that we should start thinking about to help the potential tourists to get to come back to the road, and for us to provide them with a blanket of safety, security, and assurance that you would enjoy your experience. I read that Japan wants to generate 600 million domestic trips. I think we need to pay closer attention to what is a definition of domestic tourism. And I would say let's go for anybody traveling any distance to any place and making tourism happen. To a hotel operator, it doesn't matter if somebody comes from 100 kilometers away, 150 kilometers away, or 2 kilometers away. As long as the room is sold, the room is sold. The restaurant, if the meal is sold, is sold. So we have to have a new vision or new meaning to mobility in tourism, and not to be confining ourselves to the duration of time away from home, number of kilometers or miles away from home. And we should find ways to help communities that do not have the talent, human resources, or the training to find their way out. And that calls for tourism policymakers, tourism training institutions, accept this responsibility. There are many universities in many small and large communities which are teaching hospitality and tourism. To what extent professors of hospitality and tourism are now assisting small operators, advising them, helping them? Or are we still sitting in our own comfort from a distance, writing articles and so on and so forth? I think this is also a call to duty for tourism professors, hospitality tourism, to get to the field or as safely as they can, and to assist operators, small communities, to find their way out of this coronavirus.
Thank you, Jafar. It was very informative and wise. I want to summarize my thought in a sentence of yours that I heard from you 2 years ago in one of the Tea Forum wrap-up sessions, that you mentioned a nice place to visit is a nice place to leave. So if the destination is a safe and secure place to leave, then it would be a nice place to visit. So at the end, and with the pandemic situation, how to let the nice place to live exist to visit later. And as I have been doing some new lifestyle during a few months, I've personally discovered a lot of tourism potentials in the locality and the city that I'm living in, Beppu. There are a lot to explore. I'm not against mobility and travel, but the only solution that I can see from around the world and all scholars is just stay local, revitalize local. And I think there is a common understanding here in this webinar also, as Mr. Nogami and Professor Yotsumoto both mentioned, this is about, or this is the time for community revitalization. Mr. Nogami is emphasizing on small initiatives and appreciating small initiatives from the community. And Professor Yotsumoto also mentioned that Onpaku is not about tourism only, it's about community development. So how to develop or how to build capacity for community development at this time is an opportunity itself. And it can give lessons, or the successful experiences should be shared as good lessons among the communities. At the end, and for the last, let's say, gift from this webinar, I want to ask all our panelists for one sentence as a take-home lesson, what the audience should take home from today's discussion. How about our Yoon Sensei? I think Nogami-san is raising hand. Nogami-san, what can we take home as a lesson in one sentence? What do you think?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
You didn't raise hand. Okay.
Yes, I say that.
Yes, Yun Sensei.
I think this is the good opportunity to find out our new appeal and our new strength. So the local community must take this crisis as opportunity to rediscover, to build on their own strengths, I think. Yep, so.
Thank you. So building up the strengths among the community or in community level. Great. How about Nelson? Nelson?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Take home lesson, yes. In one sentence, if you can summarize it, please.
Yes. Japan is an extremely creative country, and we cannot expect each place to react or take the same opportunities as the next door one and the next door one. So we should look at what is special, what is meibutsu of each place, and work differently so that we can have a multiple approach to the revival of tourism rather than having a formula that works for every place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the solutions should be for each local. Thank you very much, Mr. Nogami and Park-san. What lesson we should take home from you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think, yes. Okay, I feel this is the end of the seminar for today. I really want to thank you all for devoting time in Sunday morning. I know it's your family time and your resting time. I hope you enjoyed the discussions. The program was recorded. You can access to the recorded version of this on YouTube again. And we will appreciate if you can register in the website and let us know your contacts that we can send you some questionnaire later, or if you want to be in connection with us for the future webinars, please go and check the website www.tourismwebinar.com. We have several people in the audience that I see. They are from our university, Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University. They are supporting us with their warm support and comments. They have been supporting us for logistics and everything. I thank everybody who helped us with this webinar, and Todoroki Sensei also, who informed the Japanese Tourism Association about the news of the webinar. Thank you all, and I wish you a peaceful weekend for your rest of Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Japan.
My pleasure. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm here. I did a magic. Nelson.
Hello.